Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, May 2nd, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi, and this is the opening swing. The opening swing is a brief game plan for active traders of the futures markets, most specifically the S&P 500. Let's begin today, like we always do, with our news. Out of Europe, there was not a whole bunch. We had the Japanese consumer confidence out of the Asia-Pac region. And then coming into Europe, there were some PMIs, nothing really too major. Getting into the US, what we're looking at, we have our 8:30 news drivers, our international trade, kind of minor, jobless claims a little bit more significant, and productivity and costs also a bit more significant. And that's all till 10 a.m. when we have factory orders, which is another kind of second tier number. Some announcements out of Treasury land and short-term auctions, and that'll wrap it up for today. Once again, the big figure that we're looking for remaining this week is our employment situation tomorrow, as well as some PMIs and ISMs coming up tomorrow. Let's pause and get into the charts. Okay, here we have our daily chart, S&P 500, June contract, full session candles. This is our all-time high. This is our recent swing low. This is also the range of the month of April. So this is the whole April bar that has happened here. And you see, obviously, we broke the prior month's low, which was the 26s, the price that we talk about all the time. I don't know why there's an order here. I accidentally pressed a hotkey. That's a little dangerous. Anyway, anyway, so we put in our news low, reverted higher. Our 26s is the big level up here that we've been looking at, and we were able to breach above it and rejected below. So the key things that I'm looking at and we can gather from this chart, there's a few of them. The first thing is, like I said, this that April range, this area 50-56 is the 25% retracement from the low. In this area, the 48.5 is the 50% retracements from the low. So basically what we've done is we put in the low, pulled back through some very key resistance to test the 50% line, and then we're rejected back here. And as of right now, today, we're within we're between the 50 and the 25% of the retracement area, which is fairly interesting to me. So those are really the big pieces here. I want everyone to pay attention to this high. Very significant. This is a 3-bar fractal high with, the highest bar here, lower bar, and this is potentially on its way to being a 3-bar fractal. So I'm attentive to this range. Also, very important, the high of Tuesday here is a double TPO high, which is very important. Usually when you see a 3-bar fractal like this, or, for me, I'm looking at this as an area where there is a lot of selling that came in. In the event we get a break of this area, that would be very significant to me, but we'll get into that. Let's go to our lower time frames. Here's an hourly chart, full session of our recent balance, showing some areas that I'm highlighting as important. We have this area, this larger area in blue, which stretches from about 80 up to about the 26s. This was a very important fight initially on the way down that sellers won, and then we reacted against. We put in our news low, and the prices below Millennium seemed to really be rejected, and we were unable to retest. And we also have a naked weekly settle here at 0.75. So this area I'm looking at as having been initially rejected for higher prices. The rust-colored area is the midpoint of this balance and includes the key 50-50 strike price. Within this area, I've also highlighted the 46 halves to the 53 halves, which includes yesterday's settle and yesterday's VPOC and that 50-50 strike. So this is an important area for me today. Above, we have the area that we rejected, which is about 36.75, which is the Tuesday naked VPOC up to the full session high of this area. So this is a very key band as well. Above the 50-20s to that area, I'm looking at that as resistance. And I'll be honest, I'm not expecting the high of the day today to get past this rust colored band. That's what I'm saying initially. Anything could change, but that's kind of what I'm coming in here looking at. This area right here is also a fight that on the way down, which includes our century figure. I'm looking at this as initial resistance to push higher. This zipper area, I have it boxed. This was obviously between the 46 halves and 53s. This was an important area for me. Below we have the 22s, which is a swing low and a target should we break. But this is kind of the landscape I'm working with today. Let's move on to a smaller time frame chart and plan some price action. Okay, here we are on a 1x10. Let's discuss what might happen today. And out of the gates, I'll tell you that my initial expectation here is, like I said, for an inside day. So how could an inside day look? We could open again and we could just sort of hold this series of lower highs, kind of have some type of a test lower that reverts higher, gets the overnight high, misses the prior settle. So we have the prior settle and the prior RTH low right here, which is a key area. But one possible way, opens, kind of a pretty bullish idea, tests lower, leaves settlement open, just kind of grinds higher into this century figure, which this is kind of the initial area that I think we'd see some resistance in the 97 to 02 quarters. If we push through the overnight high, this would kind of be the area. And then I would expect this area to be resisted. So from here, this is a decision zone. One way this could happen, kind of get up to there, flush lower, back to the overnight range, and potentially continue down to here to get prior settle or test the zone, and then revert back higher and close inside. So that is one way. We also could sort of hold this sort of area around the 80s where FS levels would be if we get this, and then get some type of a continued attempt higher that still sort of tries this upward sloping balance and then falls short of the 20s and kind of does similar action to close in here. So those are two potential ways I could see bullish activity happening, but still stay within this range. I think it'll be kind of a grind up to a certain area that then falls over. And depending on where we find support, we could find support in this area and give us kind of a reversion, or we could go all the way down to the 50-50s. It would not surprise me, it wouldn't surprise me if settlement gets left open today. It wouldn't surprise me if we push down and try to test it and then revert. It wouldn't surprise me at all. The reason, I'll just note, this zipper right here, which was a big fight area that we broke higher from. And then we have this low. So and then we tried to retest, but we couldn't. So I'll tell you, like, to me, I mean, this was pretty bearish to get rejected here. But until we take out this low, we just pushed into support. So that's why I'm kind of expecting us to kind of get up into here and just kind of do nothing and have this area act as resistance. But so anyway, something like this, let's go over some ideas if it goes a different way. Very similarly, we could get action that kind of runs over the same ground. If it happens in a little bit more bearish of a way, it could happen with a quick test that fails back down below FS levels and kind of bounces down to give us this test quickly. And again, if we get a push into this area, it's not going to matter that much to me whether we get the prior settle or not. It won't matter. I could see us on, we could touch the prior settle and revert, or we could leave it open. Either way, it's not really a big deal to me, because I'm seeing this area as support unless we breach the low, which is 37.75. So we could get a test, fall back, then get this test somewhere in around the 53s, and then we could see reversion higher. Retests, continues up, gets this area. So right there, and again, then we could see the reversion lower. It just kind of chops around, or we could get up into this area. But again, I am not thinking, and I'm wrong plenty of times. You guys see me wrong. I'm thinking that we get an inside day today. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on what are the areas that could be tested here. I'm looking at 46.5 to 53s. I'm looking at above the 91 halves, and then 97 up to 02 quarters is a pretty important area. 10 quarters is another area, and 20 halves is an area. I'm not expecting us through this today. Initially, anything could happen. So, but from what I'm seeing so far today, that's what I'm thinking. But what we'll do now is go over what could happen if we move from this range today, because you always have to prepare for what you don't think will happen. And then you can just be surprised at how often what you didn't think was going to happen does happen, and then you're prepared for it. So let's go over a break lower. So if we get a break lower, again, this is a key area, and I don't really care how we get there. I don't care what happens here, up in here, it doesn't matter, some kind of rejection. What I'm going to care about is if we get down into this area, we can't get out, and then we break this low. If that happens, then things are going to get interesting. If this low breaks, then I do not expect us to take back this area. That's my initial expectation on a serious break. Could be wrong, but anyway, I would expect a break, maybe a retest that doesn't get past prior settle and continues to the 22s, maybe, or maybe it just falls, zippers, and goes. Either way. But if we get some kind of a break of prior settle, then I'm looking for either a retest or a zipper continuation to the 22s. At that point, if we still can't get back into this area, then we might be looking at the 06s to 03s, which would be first key target below 22s, next key target 23s. These are the key targets, and that would take us to one vol sig down. Obviously, the next important area is the prior month's low, which is the 1 quarter to 22. That's the RTH low. The ETH low is below 5K. But this would be the key target for me on the downside would be these millennium and then 92 area. I would expect support on an initial test. That could be wrong, but again, I'm not expecting us to get out of this range. But if we do, this is where I think we'd work to is the 03s. If we get below that, I'm looking at the 92 halves. If we keep falling out of there, then I would just trade zone to zone with the convergent zones. But any of these areas would be vulnerable, in my opinion, to a reversion. The reversion could just be a deep pullback unless it can get back above this area. So potential deep pullbacks and continuation, but if we get back into this range, then everything changes again. So that's kind of what I would be thinking on a break. I would say keep in mind, though, of course, as always, if something happens and we get this break that looks like it's doing what I want to say, but then if it gets back above and holds and then can't get back out, then that's a rejection of prices below here. So you have to be aware of that happening as well. But the key here for me, break, retest, or break zipper, looking for the 22s. And if the 22s cannot provide support, then potentially 06s to 03s, potentially. That's what I'm looking for on a break lower. Let's think about a break higher. Pause it quickly. Okay. So if we get a break higher, this area will be key for me, I'm thinking. On any excursion up here, like I said, these 22s, very important, or up 20s. So if we get up above this area, again, in any way, shape, or form, I would expect this to get a little messy, but if we see some higher lows persist, and then we get into the 20s, I would expect some continuation through the 26s. If we get through the 26s, the 36 halves are the big deal above for me. And we could kind of push through a little bit, but we have an HVN up here. But so if we can hold above Century, make higher lows into the 20s and the 20s hold, I would look for a take of yesterday's RTH high and a potential continuation to 36 half, which would be my key target there. So if we get that, that would be like if we get a hold above there, that's where I would start to think, okay, we have some excursion above. Now, very key here, if we start to fail over and we get back below the key area, then it's, you know, business as usual. Back into balance, we'll probably fall back here, try to retest. If we put in a lower high again and revert, then I'd be looking for us to get back to Century. And if we lose Century, then it's back to chop and balance. But this area would be key if we're going to get, in my opinion, if we're going to make a run for the high and break these break this high, I think you'd start to see action pick up 97 to 02 quarter, and then I think you'd see between 02s up to 20s. I think you'd start to see higher lows. And then if we get these 26 and 3/4, and as long as it's not immediately rejected, I would be open to continuation to 36 and 3/4. But I have to say, on a push above yesterday's RTH high, my initial expectation would be resistance and for us to fall lower initially. The other key piece to mention on any excursion higher is our 41/4. This is the high of Tuesday. It's a double TPO high. So that's really the important area here, where if we're going to fail, I think we'd likely either fail ahead of that or just, you know, test it and then get below. But if that area, if we get a lower high versus the 41/4 double TPO high, then I think that we're very likely to revert. If we test it, then there's potential for us to continue moving higher, but we could also test it and just relieve that pressure and fall back. But if we test it and continue, then the 51/50s, 54/4 up here would be the next big target. That's our balance high. Again, key, I'm not really thinking that we get outside of today's range, but we went over it just in case. I'm thinking we get an inside day. Maybe it looks a little bit volatile as we potentially wide swings within this area. But for me, primary expectation, inside day. Again, I could be wrong a lot. That's why we go over what happens if we move outside of that area. So that's what I got for you today. That's what I'm going into today with. I would, you know, today, day before non-farm, if we end up inside, it might be a day to be a little bit careful. So mind your risk if so. But if you see your setups, hey, clock those ticks. But I wish everybody the best of luck. We'll wrap it up here. Again, I'm too long, struggling, but we're going to get better with this. But thanks everyone for your time. I really appreciate all of you. I wish you all the best of luck and hope that you can do well today. And as always, I hope that you can make some other people in your life happy, because that's more important than clocking ticks. Have a great day, everyone. Talk to you.